Unmute. There I am.
Mhm.
Woo, nice screen.
Perfect.
But I can't see anybody.
I think you're the only one in.
Okay.
It says recording, but
Oh,
okay.
so would I want to record on this computer? Because then I'll hear myself, which will be good, right?
Yeah, once she's in here, she should be able to give you access to do that. Framed.
Nice, great, thanks.
Mhm.
And internet is on. And then when she gets on, I'll turn the phone off. Though having the phone on helps when we need to communicate. And I thought if nothing else, I could be audio if they can't figure it out. We could maybe get the phone and
Oh.
she could have her.
Oh,
Oh, there's
there she is.
Roberta. Okay, now what? Request permission to record on this
I
computer.
think that's a
Request.
still. There she is. Hi.
Bertie, I can't hear you. Put your audio on.
I've got it. All right.
Good.
We
All
are
right.
set. All right.
Aren't
We
you
have
excited?
5 of our 7 people are here.
Okay,
So I will introduce you as soon as we get a few more folks here.
good.
All right. I'm gonna have to get everybody on mute please.
See, when she goes away to demonstrate, we won't have the.
Yeah.
But when I'm talking, maybe you click on.
Is I'm sorry, Jennifer, who's sitting next to you?
This is my friend Olivia.
Olivia. Olivia.
Yeah. Hi.
I think you met at the gathering.
Yeah, there were
Yeah.
so
She's my tech wizard and my whatever you call that when you get support for your emotional support as well.
that's incredible.
Oh, yeah, she's wearing a flower top as well.
Mhm.
Marie Lore. Very good. Marie Lore, yeah. Is French? There's a character in that really lovely book. Yes. About the blind girl, yeah. Yeah. Yes.
I don't know. I think do they claim it from their side or not?
Got it in my head. I think it was
It's already recording.
when I came to French and the character in the 70s.
I wonder if she knows.
Okay, so.
Birdie?
Yes, yes, we're just introducing.
I know. Did you know you're already recording? I
Yes.
didn't know if you knew that.
That's-
Okay,
Okay, doesn't matter.
okay, okay.
So folks, just all know, this is.
Be able to share that with you.
Okay.
Our Zoom for now. So, Jennifer's gonna come in at a couple of times and then we're gonna spend a lot of time making. But, she'll kind of come in and out. She's the person who actually wrote the book. So, she'll be kind of a further, deeper resource for us. So she's in Pennsylvania. But I wanted you all to know that because we were doing this with the town website, they do record it. They'll probably never play this ever again because it's gonna be your video. So,
And Brett, edit this?
Okay.
don't want the world
Yeah.
to know, so just don't talk about anything really deep secrets. All right, and Barbara, okay. And Hannah. And Vicky. All right, and this is, well, I'll introduce Jennifer in a minute. I'm Roberta Miller. I'm chair of the Public Arts and Culture Committee in Watertown. And we have a project that we've been working on for the last couple of years called Edible Watertown. So we've been doing this project in a variety of ways. We have been commissioning artists to do pieces on local edible plants. So the whole idea is to make us more aware of the plants and see them in a variety of different ways. So this is one of the workshops from that series. And you guys are lucky, you may not know how lucky you are, but we did get a grant to do this, which has subsidized this workshop. So you will each get a copy of Jennifer's book, which is a great resource. And so I welcome you all. And what I'd like to do first is just go around and talk a little bit about why you were drawn to the poultice workshop. Have you had any experience with poultices? Is this all brand new to you? Just kind of quickly. So we do have two other people, Susan and Dara, who may or may not show up. So this is plenty of people. We only thought we could have three, so we're really. So Rebecca, you want to start?
Never used them before. I've used herbs off and on in a really tiny way for, you know, homeopathy and that kind of thing. So, but I really don't have any training. It's all just sort of like.
Birdie,
oh,
tilt it down, yeah, tilt it down.
I'm gonna bring
Yeah.
Jennifer in to hear what,
There,
can you see her?
Is that Jen?
Yeah. yeah, so I don't see the ceiling, yeah, thanks.
She's that one right there. Can you
Oh,
see her?
that's Jen.
That's Jennifer. I'll have her introduce
That's
herself in a
awesome.
minute. Okay, so Rebecca, your experience with herbs or,
And so poultice is not at all, which is why.
okay,
But I've seen when you use them, I can tell the healing. So, but it seems like confusing and messy and like, how the, I suppose there's a YouTube on
It
it.
is messy. Messy for sure.
Didn't know before. Okay.
it is messy, as Jennifer was saying. Yeah, that's part of the reason. Okay, Marie Laure.
I'm Marie-Laure and I use herbs all the time medicinally and in cooking. I forage like tonight on the menu. Actually, we had purslane salad and lamb's quarter.
Oh,
So, and somebody foraged themselves. I always do like a comfrey. I have comfrey in my garden. So I try plants first. So Rebecca told me about that and it was a no-brainer. It's like, oh yeah, I love that kind of stuff. So
all right. All
I
right.
came all the way from JP.
Wow, that is a drive.
Yes.
That is a drive. All right.
Hi, I'm Barbara. Use herbs for cooking, but haven't done any of this before. So I was intrigued by it, but also Jennifer, I moved here a couple of years ago from Harrisburg. So, yeah, so I was, when I saw your bio and thought I had not heard of, you know, your work or anything. So I was really intrigued to hear what you had to say. So.
Thank you.
Oh, I think we have maybe more people.
Oh, yay. Yay. Welcome. That is excellent. Just grab yourself a stool. We're just kind of introducing ourselves and talking about what drew us to the workshop, the poultice workshop. Okay,
Oh, yeah. So I'm Hannah. I live in Watertown. I just saw this posted through I believe it was the library or town news bulletin, but just caught my attention. I haven't used herbs like extensively or plants for medicinal like purposes, but just kind of dipping my toe into like exploring how that can be kind of supplementary or alternative ways of healing. And yeah, really enjoy gardening, and I work in a biotech company that draws a lot of inspiration from plants. So it's kind of like a nice intersection of like the chemistry that is involved in what I assume
Mhm, yeah.
is making the magic happen. So yeah.
It's great. Jennifer, can you see?
I can, thank you.
Great. All right.
Hi,
Vicky.
I'm Vicky. Thank you so much for being here today via Zoom. Well, so I was really drawn to it because I always think it's really neat to see a different way instead of just regular traditional medicine, to see a different way. I've tried like a poultice for like a plantar fasciitis kind of thing that I used to have, although I sort of not cured that, but it was alleviated with acupuncture. And also, I think when I had COVID, I also was applying these poultices of a certain, it was, gosh, now I can't remember what it is because I'm under pressure.
Yeah.
So, but I used that a little bit because, you know, of all the congestion and stuff, but it was just, it was an oil. It wasn't using any herbs with it.
Mhm.
So I'm curious to see
Okay.
what you got.
All right. And we have our newly arrived member. Your name is?
I'm Dara. I'm like an herbalism dabbler. I've mostly done tinctures and extractions, so poultices are pretty new for me, and I'm just curious to learn.
All right. All right.
Great.
So Dara, just so you kind of know, Jennifer is in Pennsylvania. So she is our herbalism expert. She is the one who wrote the book, and you will all get a copy of this book for registering. And I'm kind of the local person. I've used these, all of these poultices many, many times on my family, but I would never consider myself an expert. Jennifer's the expert. So I'm going to let her kind of kick it off and start the introduction. So the way the workshop is going to go is Jennifer will give us an overview, kind of 10 minutes, and then we're going to start working. Just go around the room and make these different poultices, talk about how they're used, when you pick them, how do you apply them, how long do you keep them on? So we're actually going to make all of these poultices. So Jennifer, are you ready? I'm gonna put you on. Well, I can't do anything else. You're as good as it's going to be.
Thank you. I'm so happy.
Jennifer, we've got a
I'm
question.
wondering if Jennifer has a poultice for eyes, because right now it's been bothering me, and I thought that would be very interesting because I'm not aware of, you know, inflamed eyes.
Inflamed eyes.
Yeah.
Jennifer,
Yeah.
can we talk
We'll,
about?
yeah, we will cover that at some point, but please remember to remind about that. And that is a very important question. And I'm glad we can cover it tonight so that we don't do damage while we're enthusiastically applying some of these, you know, beginning ways in which we want to learn. So that will be really good to hold on to. Thank you. And you know, Bertie doesn't count herself as an expert, but once you've used all of these poultices on your family members and got amazing results, you're as much of an expert as I am, because this is all about self-learning by doing. And I can't remember your name who said they are messy. That is true. Then I know you really have tried it. Because my teacher, Evelyn, I think Bertie might have some samples of what we ended up finally doing, which were these bed pads that we'd sew little pockets onto to make them less messy so that people would actually use them and that we would ourselves use them. So I digress. I'm going back to the beginning of my experience, which is when I met Evelyn Snook. She was a local herbalist, and I was so fortunate to have come across her path, and her life story is in the book, so I won't go into that. And you will find that highly inspiring, as I did, because I had no knowledge of plants before meeting her. I also had no experience, with gardens or nor did we ever hear the word herbalist, honestly. Now there's many herbalists, fortunately, popping up, and I'm happy to hear that. But when I started in 1970, when I met Evelyn Snook, there wasn't such a thing called an herbalist, and there wasn't, I mean, in modern sense of a career, if you will. So all the learning was just by following her around, which is the original way that tribal people learned, by doing. So poultices are definitely only learned by doing on yourself. In my case, I had horses, so they became my subjects as well as my own injuries, multiples of injuries. And that becomes the way in which we build confidence, but also a way in which we learn about healing, how it takes place, and how our body responds to different ways to heal. Okay, so from there, we'll go on more to what the theme is tonight about the skin, why poultices might work through the skin, and why we would choose certain ways to heal through the skin. So any questions so far?
Nope.
Okay, good. All right, so the skin is the largest organ of our body. And in that capacity of being an organ, I mean, we think of it mainly, we take care of it as our outward identity. We recognize each other through that. So I think of it, when you think of it as an organ, we're going to want to frame it in a way that it takes in nourishment. And it also has the way to eliminate. So those two functions, the whole body does much of that through other organs as well. But by concentrating on what we place on the body, then we're also working with those two ways. And that's our intention. So a moist poultice, which is simply a chopped up plant in which we pulp it in a way that it's kind of mushy and it's wet, that, like anything that you would put wet on your skin, you can feel what that feels like. There's going to be a temperature component to it, right? It might be cold, it might be warm, depending on if you use, a warm tea when you ground up your poultice, any number of things, but temperature becomes an important communication between what you put on your skin and how the body reacts to that. So warmth, of course, opens up the pores. In my body, warmth always and quite often relaxes. Whereas cold, which when we have injuries, they often tell us to put cold or ice on it, and sometimes that works for people. It does not work for me. So we have to determine our own comfort levels with how we approach placing something on our body. And we also have to consider, if we're placing on someone else's body, their comfort level. So temperature is one thing to keep in mind when you're working with poultices. And we'll cover some of that when we go through the individual poultices. So we're on absorption, and that influence of nourishing plant material going through the skin influences the circulatory system, which is your blood, the lymph system, the muscle structure, and the nerve structure. And then what Matthew Wood calls the intercellular matrix, which the shorthand is the ocean we came from is still in between all of our tissues. So we'll just leave it like that. But I find that kind of fascinating once I started to read that material and compare it to how I felt the poultices were really working. So because I'm a lay person when it comes to my training, and I'm an artist by background, then I don't approach with a language of like the sciences in the sense of really being able to describe how a poultice works in a sense, maybe mechanically. I can only tell you from personal experience. And I think, you know, that's how many of us work with this type of hands-on healing anyway. And it is interesting, though, to have the language when we can work from that way. But how fast an absorption will take place in the body through a poultice is also what we call timing. So we time a poultice simply to pay attention, to honor the process of putting a healing material on the body. So when we talk about timing, that will be the individual situation and the individual poultice itself. Material that we're using, again, the temperature, how long, and so forth. So you'll always want to add that to your list of how you monitor a poultice. So I want to make a note at this point for the absorption aspect while we're still on the absorption component of the skin, that essential oils, which are sold easily everywhere from TJ Maxx to, online, are the most toxic and potent and quickly absorbed through the skin herbal medicine. Therefore, they're the most dangerous, and they must be used with the most amount of knowledge and caution, and particularly in children whose skin is so much more absorbent than ours because they're tiny and new and tender. They're very tender skinned. So it can also cause seizures if a child would come in contact, because it's not only the molecule itself being absorbed through the scent, which is part of its healing properties, but also directly on the skin. So I wanted to just make that note as one of the cautionary things, that we're talking about fresh plant material here, dried plant material in some cases, kitchen type vegetables, as well as poultices. All right, now the elimination component of skin. The skin, as we know, can sweat. That's good. We have herbs that sometimes can induce that. They're called diaphoretic herbs, which help when we have a fever to actually break the fever, bringing the heat that's building up within the internal part of our body outward. So once a poultice is on, the body gets to decide how much time it wants to absorb that material, and at what point it's going to eliminate. So we're not always in charge of that. That's why, again, the timing and the observation. So elimination is also intentional. So if you have an abscess or a swelling, we need to eliminate the toxins that are in that area. So then we would choose a poultice that is intentionally a plant that has strong drawing properties. Comfrey is one of those. many work that way simply by the fact that if you're putting something moist and warm on an area, it's going to allow the body to be able to actually open up and eliminate through the skin. So you see where even if you don't have comfrey, you could use one of these other poultices that we teach tonight, even maybe an onion poultice put on warm is going to help draw out toxins if that's your intent. So in the case of infections under the skin, yes, we would want to monitor that and also bring out through the skin without breaking the skin. It can do that. A bruise is blood under the skin bleeding. We want to stop the bleeding. A poultice can do that. And then we want to eliminate from the site what is the dead blood. And a poultice will do that as well, because it will stimulate circulation to the area, and it will stimulate the lymph, and it will help move that congested blood away from the area, which is what causes pain in most instances, fever, because that's part of the healing process of the body when it creates inflammation. So it sends the building blocks to that area of a wound or injury. Okay, any questions so far? Do we remember now? It's absorption and
All right.
nourishment and elimination. Two things to remember.
All right. So Jennifer, are we ready to start making poultices?
We are, because I think we covered what they will do. And then from there, we'll go with stories. So do it.
All right. All right, folks.
Any questions?
Questions about these general concepts of absorption and elimination?
Good.
We'll talk more about all of that as we go around the room with these very specific poultices. Okay? All right, I'm going to put Jennifer over here. And when we need her, we can call her. If we say, oops, we really need to know what that is. So we're going to start with confidence. So you've had experience with confidence. Do you grow it in your garden? Yes. So I do have a video of Jennifer walking around her garden actually picking this. I don't know if you want to see that, but it's we do have that. These I picked. I'd like you guys to feel this. It's very furry. And if you don't be shy about doing something, it's very what's the word? Yes, yes, Dara, that's it. Dara, do you want an apron? Yeah, there's one way back there. So that's part of it. Gets really slimy. It's slimy. It's so what's your experience? So anyway, I'm gonna. This one is so easy to make, but it does require a yeah, yeah, you have to. So we start. This works. And what Jennifer always says is you don't, if it's just been outside, you don't necessarily need to wash it unless it's dirty. And I've made these many times. These I got at our, this is a blurry guy. They're just, this is one of my favorite. Not to be using every day, but tender leaves dip in batter and with lemon juice and salt, it tastes like fish. Wow. So they're actual of the vegetable salt. Oh, wow. So what do you do with this? So I beat an egg white, I put a little flour, water, salt, and then I dip the leaves, and then I soak them, we make flavors sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And often when I serve that for, when we have consultants, they get because it looks fancy. Yeah. Well, it's really interesting because every herbalist I know will eat pumpkin. There are some scientific people who say never eat pumpkin. That is something you should never, ever do. It's poisonous. Anyway, they look at the, I'm not gonna be able to explain this well, but I trust all my herbalist friends who've been feeding it for years, and you're not dead yet. So, and you feed it to your family. So it's like rhubarb, right? You wouldn't want to feed rhubarb in large quantity every day.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crystalline compound with the leaves that are supposed to be toxic.
There.
Thank you. And potatoes and tomatoes and.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah. So some of these I picked from my backyard, and some of these I picked at the, Yeah, and I would never be floor. I'm sure your friends also don't do the floor. I mean, some things happen, I mean, maybe cook it, so you can be a cook. Yes, well,
Yeah.
when it's fried. Okay. All right, so let's see if I can make this.
Is that a good plan or is the something?
No, I don't think it's deep fried, so I try to not use too much. Like that, I put a little oil, neutral, that takes high temperature, just a little bit. Like that. And then I put them on high, really funny oil and with a tissue, that take it out of that power. And really have to be very, like a little bit. All right, let's see if this. Goes. So it's not really enjoying now. Let's see. It is definitely plugged in. So it's not a power strip, that's what I mean. No, it's right. Is there a water fountain? Yes. There is a water fountain. Well, we should try to. Yeah, no, I don't know.
I think I'm just. I don't wanna start it. Just start going.
That's the on off switch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Spot that underneath. It's not really a good spot, but.
You know, right angles.
I guess so that you don't accidentally hit it while you're
Yeah.
working. So you turn it on there, the button is like underneath. now.
Oh, you guys are so great. I love you. There we go. Okay, so you often have to add a little water. Get this to kind of continue to do what it does. So it's gonna, and the idea is you get it kind of turned into like a mush. I wondered what. Right. Right. We were talking about how the day before, they had vitamin food. Yeah,
Shoot up.
You can't give up all these plants. In fact, you'll hear stories of, when you have a bee sting and you're out there, and you want to get a plant to actually, react. Yeah. See what's small water? Yeah, I thought that was good. Well, put this on.
Yeah. Well, there's also, you can also make it in a food processor. Which I have used also. But which, so I'm not familiar with, but.
So Jenny, this probably has a little too much liquid in it now, but, that's what it should look like. It should look, kind of more possibly, beautiful green. Really slimy. And I think that.
Okay. So.
It is like a very sticky, but it's slimy. So what I would probably do with this one, I added a little too much water to it. So you can add, there's a couple of things that you can add to things that, you can adjust, so it makes it a little less, liquid. And you can add, clay. If you get, yes. So this is the bentonite clay, which we buy at any health food store. So here we are. This one we already have. If you add any more, I do. Quite a bit. And you can put a little bit of this into it. And that will thicken it up. It's an easy way to use it. Oh, it's sources non-minerals first. The non-minerals first this powders. And exfoliation then, yeah, they are very conscientious in all ways. Okay. So here we are. So what we do now. So if you guys want to just kind of come around here and you can get a better view of this. I'm just going to squeeze in here. So this is my usual technique. It is a part of a t-shirt. Or it can be, this one, in fact, is a old sheep that had a hole. So it's now part of a poultice. To save all of these, you know, I tend to want to use white or something that is, ideally you'd want to use organic, you want to, but this has been washed a million times. So I feel perfectly comfortable with that and cotton. And cotton, yes, exactly, exactly. So, and all you do now is you put this slimy, wonderful stuff.
Put that closer so people could see.
Okay. So Jennifer, it's all slimy. So I put this, and Jennifer, actually, you can.
Beautiful, Birdie. Looks like a good green poultice.
Good green poultice. Now, I've seen Jennifer actually take it and put it directly on her skin, which she has many stories of magically healing people doing that. I've never done that. I do the same thing every time. Because it's the easiest for me, because I can keep this poultice.
Yeah.
It should be a little, I learned that I should have put a little more plant material than I'm used to, so this is a good amount of plant material. And then I just make a little packet for whatever size, whatever shape I want to make. So depending on where I want to put it, if I want to put it on my wrist, then I make it long and skinny. Or if I'm just putting, I often would put it on my bad knee, and I would just go like this and like this. And then I squish it down a little bit. And then you'll start to see it's starting to come through. So that's what you want to have happen. You want to have that start, and then you would put it on, you could feel it a little bit.
You put it on your husband's broken collarbone.
Yeah.
Last year, my husband, because Rebecca knows him, broke his collarbone. And I went to the garden. That went out. So that. You know, the old name, do you know that it's called knit bone?
Knit bone, yes.
And in French, it's consud, which means con, you know. Sud is to,
Oh, isn't it?
like to well, you know, when you're well.
Yeah.
No, it does
And
feel
why?
warm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even.
So it wasn't.
Yeah.
Not just, but it wasn't just the pain, it was actually.
Actually,
Yeah, it speed things up. I mean, it's broken, but.
yeah. So it is, and I'll let Jennifer talk a little bit about the usage. I've used this thing many, 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 many times. I used to lay out my daughter's high school field hockey team on my living room floor. And I would make poultices for each one of the back of their knees. And they would lay there for an hour. And they had, you know, I don't know, but they all did it. And it was,
Was it a winning year?
it was absolutely a winning year. Absolutely. So I use this on my knee, which I have kind of a gimpy knee. I used it on my ankle when I broke it. Speeding, broken bones, all of that. But you almost can't go wrong with comfrey. It's one of those plants that if you got it and something's wrong, you could probably use it and it probably will help the body. But Jennifer, I'm gonna defer to you on that. You want to, you know, wax a little bit poetic about how
Yes,
wonderful.
I will. And the contribution you made about the broken bone, of course, we never use it on a broken bone. And then I remembered that, of course, on a collarbone, they can't set a collarbone, right? They can only support the area and hope that the bones themselves reach that electrical impulse that draws them together. So yeah, you would want kind of a bone setter person to line up, hopefully. Then you could put your comfrey poultice on and you would speed up that healing process, because that's why it's one of its names is called knit bone. So I remember a funny story when we were all eager and young and learning all these poultices and trying them on everyone that we that had injuries and so forth. And we went to visit our friend in the hospital who had a broken nose. And some of my friends were eager to take a comfrey poultice. And I said, no, not until the doctor sets the nose, or she will have the broken nose forever healed in that way, because it is that fast. So back to making a poultice when it's a little too watery. Sometimes I pour off that extra water and we can use that as compresses. Also, what's nice about the way Birdie puts it in a cotton folded way like that is if you wanted the poultice to be warm when you put it on and you didn't use hot tea to make it and it wasn't still warm, then I can use an iron, gently uses a steam iron to heat the poultice just prior to putting it on. Okay? So any other questions about the kind of making that she added clay? Sometimes people added flour, sometimes slippery elm, a powdered slippery elm, another healing plant. I think the original way of making comfrey poultices, probably back in the 30s and so forth, would have been almost cast-like. And that would have been the root. The root is very, very intensely slimy when you first dig it out of the ground. And if you would apply that, it would actually harden and begin to hold like we make castor plaster casts now. And it would also have all that healing property going in. We mainly use the leaves now just because it just seems to be more available. What was the other thing? Also, I guess it was mentioned about how it's not safe to use on broken skin. For every rule that says you should not, you need to take a personal examination of what it is that you are caring for in that case. Because again, when I was young and eager, there was a man working on our roof, a metal roof. He cut his wrist, it squirted blood. His companion tourniqueted right away. We got him off the roof. He was white as a sheet. I had seen it happen because it was right outside the window where I was. I was already in my comfrey patch. I was already, fortunately it was summer. I was already making a poultice. And I said, before we take you to the hospital, let's just put this on. So at that time, because I was young and eager and had just learned all of this, I didn't know about the rule of not putting it on a open wound. So there's always grace sometimes allowed with plants when you're naive. And that was a moment of grace because it was within minutes of the injury happening. So the body did not have time other than to cleanse the wound with a lot of blood. And when I put the poultice on, it stopped the bleeding. And it immediately knit the skin together. So when I took it off, it just, he said, well, I was going to go for stitches. I said, yeah, we thought you were going to go for stitches. Maybe you don't need him. And the color came back into his face and we sat, I put a few more poultices on. I sent him home with poultices instructing he should get up every 2 hours and apply a poultice so that it did not break open, did not incomplete its healing, because we saw what was really happening and how the body was actually not having to go through the whole inflammatory state and could actually bring those tissues right back together. So there are miracles, and sometimes there's grace, but usually the rule is not to put it on an open wound. So that's that story. A woman called me after birth and she had a tear from the birth, and she said, please bring me your comfrey poultices. I can't sit or lay to nurse my baby. I'm in terrible pain from my episiotomy. I didn't know there's another case. You have torn skin. She asked for it. I didn't know yet about this other rule. So I took my sitz pan, poured a very liquidy one like you have there into the sitz pan. She sat in it. And I mean, within minutes, she's out of pain. And then it healed nicely. So again, that's grace. And that's also something that just worked in that moment. And I can't explain it. Okay. So other ways I've used with a carpet layer And this will teach you two ways of using combined poultices because you have to follow a longer healing process. Those were short healing processes, weren't they? The man with the open wrist, he wanted to play softball the next day, so he was on his own pretty much. If he wanted to open it up again, I was not going to be responsible for 48 hours. So, I really want two more stories, Bertie, before we switch off to this, because there are very important stories to show.
Or just let me ask you one thing. So you did a longer process with the roofer guy, or are you referring to somebody else?
No, this will be one that I'm going to be telling, but what you did see was it wasn't just one poultice on the wrist, was it? It was at least 3 here in my presence for probably several hours before it was determined that he didn't have to go to have stitches on this wound because it was not behaving the way a normal wound would. So then after that evaluation, he went home and I sent home with him more poultices to be done every 2 hours through the night. So you see, how does this come about? I'm not a doctor. I don't know these things. I'm simply watching the process that the body is giving me when we are in a healing moment. So there can't be rules that you always be able to apply. Do you understand? So every situation is going to be unique. So it is the hands-on, the watching. And I do believe this is the way all women healers in the past practically all women were healers in the past because they were the ones in charge of all life and death. So this is how it was done, and this is how it was passed on tribally in all indigenous cultures. And we came from indigenous cultures at some point from somewhere on the planet. So it's not rocket science to me. It sounds like miracles to others, but we've lost our real ways. It's our inheritance. So the man who took a longer time, this was a carpet layer. And so his knees, without me knowing this, were very scarred from being on his knees as his work. And he bumped his knee on a tractor and it infected with a staph infection, very, because he had not much circulation there, but that isn't why we didn't think it, that was why it had happened. But his doctor gave him an antibiotic and it wasn't solving the infection because when you have swelling to an area, there's blood restriction, there's heat, and the antibiotic is systemic. So it won't always address an area like a joint that has been challenged. So they were starting to talk about possibly cutting or even amputation. So we started, and so this is not fresh. This is not a fresh wound. This is a wound that's been, fevered and is trying to be handled through an oral system of medication. Nothing was done to the wound site. Always a mistake. So multiple poultices. We started out with comfrey. Here's where we can learn about how to read the reaction of a poultice. So being an older infection, it heated up, like that poultice was put on maybe room temperature, cool, or just how you felt this poultice right there being made. So I didn't heat it, I didn't chill it, I didn't do anything other than just put it on fresh. And then we check it and I ask the person, okay, how does this feel? And I take my hands and I feel the area and I can feel the heat radiating off of it. The heat becomes almost like a fever in the area. That's a good sign because it is an inflammation in the area because there's infection in there. So the fact that the poultice is heating up is because it's activating. it's activating and interacting, and the body is saying, whew, thank goodness I have some material to work with now. So remember, it's elimination and it's absorption. So first, absorption of material that will help with the elimination and the drawing out and to the site, so it doesn't go deeper, and so it doesn't go systemic or septic. All things that were starting to happen. Multiple poultices. So I send him home. He's a big man. He figured out that he took his garbage, his plastic garbage can, into the shower so he could really put intense, big poultices on, and they were messy, yes, but he solved how to work with messy because he knew it felt good and he knew he had to save his knee. So I love it when I work with somebody who will grab hold and help the healing go. And you are then in partnership, not only with the body, the injury, but the person. They get it, you know? So he calls me up after a couple of days and he said, I wanted to heat that one up because it wasn't heating up anymore. And I said, oh, well, that's a good sign. Yeah, well, I put it in the microwave. It blew up. I said, okay, we might be done with that. I said, does it still feel like it's doing anything? No, it doesn't. But he said, we're not done yet. And I said, no, we're not done yet. So come back. So here's the other poultice you will learn. It's a potato, grated potato poultice. So we tried that. He said, I feel something. I think this one's going to work. So he went home and worked after I taught him how to do the potato poultice. And a potato poultice, unique. I don't remember where I learned this. I don't remember if my teacher told me this, but she said raw potatoes, even if you eat them or juice them, can affect staph infections. Or strep, one of those two that start with an S, and you can tell I'm not trained that way, so I might not remember the two, but they're both pretty bad. So I figured, okay. So I wondered why it was taking so long and why his knee was kind of mottled looking. And that is because of the scar tissue. That's why it was particularly dangerous for this man, because the circulation and scar tissue under the skin has, not the same kind of movement for elimination or absorption. Okay. Anyway, he got better.
Excellent.
The last story I have is really one, you see, all the people who I've ever worked with, plus my horses, have all taught me these things, because by being a partner with them, with the plant and the whole opportunity, I got to learn these things. So there was a woman who had a car accident. Her door, she was opening the car door while she was in a parked position when another car came and slammed that door back onto her leg. She was a big woman and she had a lot of thigh muscle there, and you could actually see the imprint of the door. And so she called me up and she says, I'm not going to the hospital. I want you to come and put poultices on me. So fortunately, again, it was summer. I had a lot of comfrey. I started making poultices, putting them on. And the bruise had not appeared yet. So we knew there had to be heavy bruising underneath. And usually a comfrey poultice will actually never let a bruise color if you get it on soon enough, because it helps move that dead blood from bleeding underneath the skin. It won't bruise. Well, in her case, by the third or fourth poultice, a couple hours later, I was wondering why it was purple in areas, yellow in other areas, green in some areas, and yellow and weird. And I said, so this is not usually happening. I said, and then she said, I'm diabetic. I'm type 1 diabetic. I have to give myself shots there. Okay, more scar tissue. Also more information. We're putting green, fresh plant material on a body. It's being absorbed. It is affecting the whole body. I said, you have to start checking your blood sugar right now. It changed her need for insulin. Poulticing changed her need for insulin. She needed less. She took that information and she went, wow. I did not realize the danger to this woman who is diabetic and why she didn't want to go to the hospital. They have limited circulation as well. So for her, the danger was very evident that she might go into a gangrenous septic condition in her leg. So fortunately, we were able to avoid that too. But guess what? After she monitored her blood sugar for the days in which we were doing poulticing, she changed her diet because she realized that a diet of more fresh greens meant she could extend the life of the use of her insulin, which increases, I understand, in type 1 diabetes who are dependent on insulin. As they get older, they need more. So that might be enough stories for now.
Right. Okay, Jennifer, any quick questions and we'll move right to our next one?
I guess I'm just
Yeah, go
wondering,
ahead.
what else can you use this for? We talked about behind the knees. and
Yep.
Is it back
So
pain or
you can
knee
use it
pain?
for any kind of
Bruise.
or burn or any kind of bone problem.
I have not, I tried it in my either, yeah, we should hear the other stories. I tried it one time, I fell down the barn stairs and then caught myself with my hands. So the gravel at the bottom of the stairs filled all this tissue with gravel. Okay, and I thought, oh, wow, great, I get to use some comfrey poultices. Oh, the pain was terrible because those stones went in at an angle. The poultice was put on and trying to draw them directly out. That's a drawing poultice, trying to try all that stone material out directly through skin that wasn't torn. So I went over to Evelyn, my teacher, and I said, Evelyn, it's not working. What do I do? It's painful. She put salve on, which will be the next workshop at some point in the fall. A salve, calendula salve on a Band-Aid and on each one of the little gravel things. That softened the skin enough so that the stones could migrate out without having or giving me an infection. So there are times when you won't use the comfrey. And a burn, I'm not sure, Bertie, if you've used them on a burn, then that's fine. I've never used them on a burn. We like to use them for things that are bruises under the skin mostly, aches and pains, and I have used them in fractures of the spine in older women who are having, you know, the bone issues. And those tiny fractures that happen in the spine, they're very painful for older people. And we'll put a poultice on because it heals the fracture pretty quickly.
I've only used it for bones and for ligaments, those kinds of things. But you know, there's a long list of what Evelyn says in here, which is abscess wounds, acne, blackheads, burns, bruises, bee stings, bites, cuts, cysts, full sores, sprains, torn ligaments, ulcers, mastitis, fresh bleeding wounds and punctures, fractures, osteoporosis, bone pain, broken bones, detoxifying from drug or smoke addiction, and environmental toxins.
Right.
Builds
And that would be, I'll interrupt there, the, which one was it? The puncture wound is her story. And that is something, another one of those rules where you wouldn't use it on a puncture wound because comfrey heals the surface too quickly, which would hold the infection inside. But in her case, because she was knowledgeable, she wore that poultice in a way, the nail that went through her foot and came out the top, it was just moist and it kept the draining going so that it didn't seal over. And I can't tell you why it didn't seal over. Sometimes I think we ask a plant, this is far for some people, but we ask the plant to do a certain thing and it might. So
I just
you will
answered.
have to have your own experiences and see if you get in trouble or not. In other words, so, yeah, does that maybe answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
So the other, this is another one of the possible ways. I've never used this because I've always just done this because it's easier. But this is, this is like one of those disposable bed protectors. And this is cotton. And you could put any kind of the poultice material in here. And then if you wanted to wrap it up, say around your leg or around your wrist, and then you could, Vicky, could you grab me that, ace bandage like thing? And you could wrap it then with this. So it's a way to kind of keep it, you know, on for an hour or two, which is generally what we do with these things. This one, what I always do is I wrap myself with plastic wrap, enormous amounts of plastic wrap. Sometimes when I do my knee, and it drips down, and you don't want that green on anything. So I actually wrap all the way down my leg and I wrap my foot. Because otherwise it drips into my shoes and makes my shoes all green.
See, these are good tips.
Yeah, no, you really want to, I go overboard with the plastic wrap. So, but there are other ways. So you're gonna see how this is starting to, you know, it drips. And it stains. So you want to make sure you're protecting any space. If you're sitting, just make sure you put towels or any of this kind of stuff under it and wrap it all up. Just make sure you're not dripping all over. That's the messy part.
I have a quick question.
Yep.
So when you, I'm imagining that the best scenario is that you make it fresh and use it right
Yeah.
away.
Yeah.
But Jennifer, you're saying that you like sent the man home with extra to make, like, is there kind of a general rule of thumb of how like stable it is and how like what the waiting time is before you can use it, before maybe the compounds aren't as active?
yeah, that's a great question, and that brings us up to how to preserve them out of season. So, how I did it for these people when I make them ahead is the way you'd maybe make hamburger patties. I made the fresh poultices up, put wax paper in between, put them in a plastic bag, and instructed them to put them in the refrigerator. I always kept extra ones in the freezer that way. And then, you know, thaw them out. And then, like I said, if I needed it warm, I could use the iron. My farrier, he would always save me till last to shoe my horses. Because if he got kicked at any one of his other customers, he knew I had cold poultices in the freezer for him. So that's the way to preserve them outside. And I would keep them in the refrigerator for, you know, a day or two. It's kind of like pesto, only we haven't got the oils and the other things. And so, yeah, it might deteriorate a little bit, but it's still something the body will be able to absorb. It isn't going to be, you know, it isn't going into a compost poultice yet. Which is the other thing. We never use them twice. The one that's been on the body is composted, put back in nature, to honor where it came from. And yeah, we don't reuse a poultice because we don't know how much has been, you know, eliminated into that poultice that the body wanted to get rid of. And so you would simply be reabsorbing it. And that also has to do with the complexity of timing a poultice. Some people I've heard, you know, they go to bed and they sleep with it overnight. They might get away with something like that. I myself like to monitor them. And we might talk a little bit more about that, Bertie, at the end when we have more discussion time. Because that is a more complex issue. Because if you do think the poultice heated up and then stopped activating, then it can go to the other stage and put whatever it drew out back in the body. It'll just reabsorb it. Makes sense, doesn't it? So
I did
use
think-
your common sense.
I literally, I took an ice cube tray and I froze this substance in the ice cube tray. But Jennifer actually has this better idea with these hamburger patty things, which I've never done, but it sounds like a much better deal because you want to just pull them out when they're in the freezer. You're right. The best time to do all of this stuff is ASAP. You know, it's do it now, and that it will be much more effective. And if you've got it on hand, that's why I use t-shirts, because I've got them. So, okay.
I have a question because all these talk about freezing and refrigeration. Well, that's kind of new in human history. So what happened when people had an injury that's in the winter when there was no fresh herbs, comfrey and others? So, you know, how other plants, we do tinctures and, you know, dry them for tea. So is there a way, traditional way to do poultices with dry herbs, basically?
Yeah, that's a good question too, and I would think the dried powders more. But what, you know, if we were, I mean, if you're really going back to whatever material, I mean, there's a lot of plant material that can be used as poultices. But we in modern times, if you don't have it, I have had people say that they've used the dried comfrey leaf. I never have because of this way that I do it, but I have used the dried slippery elm powder. You can probably buy dried comfrey root. I've used dried licorice, and of course you always have vegetables, root vegetables available in the winter in the northern hemisphere because we grow those, and those two then work as fresh poultices because they're available in the winter.
They won't have the property that comfrey has to re-knit tissue.
I don't know that. But we don't have a lot of experience with the dried ones. There are some people who do use them, but we don't have a lot of experience with it. I just freeze it.
My freezer is not huge.
Yeah, freeze the patties or?
Yeah, the
freeze
patties.
or-
Yeah.
You make the patties. Some people thought they were freezing the fresh leaves just whole, but no, because you're using up a lot of plant material into a poultice that then will be available for the purpose that it was. And they always come out very beautiful green. They still smell wonderful. It is a good preservation way when needed for winter, if you really want a comfrey poultice. But
A little zip.
yeah, a sandwich bag. You could, I've even been, you know, when I've had extra, I will just dump it right into the plastic sandwich bag, fill the whole thing up, and then put that right into the freezer too, double bag. Okay, let's move on to the next poultice.
The next poultice, we're gonna have to zip through the next ones. What time do we have? Yep, we are gonna have to. Okay, the next one is a bit of a pretend. Because this is an onion poultice. And the onion poultice, you actually heat up. And I had a friend who was going to lend me their hot plates. And then they realized that they had lent their hot plate to someone else. So this is going to be a pretend poultice experience. So here we go. We have a hot plate. We have a cast iron pot, a pan.
I've already done this, so you don't have to worry, we have onion. That is, I used a, food processor. So if you can cut it up very small, you don't have to use a food processor or a blender, but the idea is to get it very small. So this is just one organic onion. All of the vegetables that I use on these poultices are always organic. So get the best vegetables or product you possibly can, because you don't want to be putting something on your skin that's got some kind of herbicide on it. So, the idea here, and you can smell it's still very leafy. You basically put this in the pan and you put it on about medium. So this is magically working. You put a tablespoon, and all of these instructions are in the book, guys. So, and then you use a tablespoon of salt. And then you use a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. And then you stir all that up. And you only cook it enough so that the, the dry is gone. So it's just enough. Get it a little bit translucent, really literally in 2 or 3 minutes, because you've got it very small. So then you take the very same process, it's really not hard. We do the same thing. All we do is we take this, now this is hot. And we're putting it directly onto the poultice fabric. Is a little bit of olive oil? Nothing, nothing, no oil. It's just, and then you spread it out like this. And you do the same thing. You just make a little packet. And this will not work because it's not cooked and it's not hot. But you put it on the body as hot as somebody can stand it. This is one that goes on hot. I have to swear by this onion poultice. The way that I used it, and it has been almost magical, is if I have a chest cold, the onion has antibacterial capacities, and I put it on my chest, and I lay down. Of course, with several towels moving my body. Again, we're talking messy. And then I've actually slept with this one. I don't sleep with any of the other ones. But I went to bed, laid down, and I woke up and I felt wonderful. So, and I've done this with other people too, and I've seen a lot of improvement. And again, you catch these things early, and it gives the body a little bit of boost, and you can actually get rid of it. If it's been in the body for a long time, you might have to do repetitive kind of treatments. But what I've used this for is, and some people have done where they do one for the back and one for the front, so they lay people down so they've got a really bad chest something. And they lay on one and then they put the other one here, they put towels all over them and on the bed, and then they go to sleep and wake up. And anyway, I love this poultice. I think it's really fabulous.
And in this one, can you put a little flour so it's less drippy?
No, I think you want it drippy. It's really something. See, you want this. This is really the moisture. So, it's.
And that's just for, you feel like that's just for chest stuff, because my friends, not, use put like an onion at the bottom of the foot when she would have a fever. That was supposed to help.
Did it work?
she was a kid at the time, so I guess she didn't really know if it was really working. She was just like, oh, there's a onion on my foot.
That's really stinky and weird. Yeah. All right, Jennifer, we're running out of time, so if you have a couple of quick things to say about onion. that
Right.
would-
The onion poultice I find is just really always very successful, the way Bertie talked about. It affects the organs underneath. So sore throats, ear infections in children, unresolved coughs that where an antibiotic has been used and then weeks later you're still coughing, a dry cough that's not productive. You put a nice warm or as hot as you can wear it without burning the skin on, and you could even put front and back, the front of the chest and the back. That will loosen all of that dried phlegm that just really got stuck and dried out. So those are the things. And yes, I heard somebody say something about putting it on the feet. That's another area you can always address easily with an onion poultice, with a baggie over the onion poultice and then a sock over the baggie to hold it on in order to not make a real mess in the bed. But it is, it will resolve colds in that way. So the body absorbs, this is a case where the body absorbs, takes it in, and then uses it in the wisdom of the body's way to eliminate illness, change the inner environment in a way to eliminate the disease, help the mucus. Okay, that's onion poultice.
All right.
Pneumonia as well. I've used it for pneumonia. Sometimes, I do want to add this one thing because I experienced it. I had pneumonia. I was on antibiotics and I used an onion poultice to help resolve so I could continue to expectorate more and I wouldn't get dried out. And then what happened is I rashed. I had a skin rash wherever I put the onion poultice. Because I was experienced, I understood this was the toxins eliminating through the skin. But then, of course, you have the rash that you then have to take care of. So you wouldn't put another poultice on. I had to just heal a lot slower. I think it was a combination of possibly the antibiotics detoxifying out the skin, because that would be a normal reaction. Okay, so
one thing I want to make sure to emphasize, when you put this on and if you say you put it on your chest, you want to, that goes on your skin, but you want to have a plastic thing on top of it because otherwise, all of your towels or your bedding, everything is going to smell like onion. And it's the same thing with this. I would put this on and then, as I said, just wrap it up with plastic wrap. So
yeah, and the other purpose of the plastic, I mean, as much as we hate the plastic in our modern world, it is acting like a sort of a greenhouse effect so that the absorption is going one direction. Does that make sense? So it's not evaporating. And it's also holding the heat in so you can read the temperature as the poultice changes or activates.
All right, moving right along here, we're gonna try to take on time. So moving on to potatoes. I know I've said this is a natural food. This is an organic potato, and you want to make sure you don't have. And this one is so simple that it's crazy simple. All you have to do, I've got my usual thing here, is raise the potato. That's it. And then you'll have, see how the potato juice is kind of coming out and kind of spitting at me? So that is the part that's the healing part, is all of this juice. So you want that juicy stuff. So I do it directly onto the cloth and the plate. And this, everybody's got a potato in their kitchen. This, the thing that I've used this for, which is, and to tell you the truth, if you're desperate, see this, see how wet that is? You can put that directly. You know, say you bruised yourself terribly. Just do it. So I found that this poultice is the best for bruises. This is potatoes, we love potatoes, we have a good for burn. I've never used it for burns, but maybe let's follow up on that. Because the only thing I've used it for, and that doesn't mean that that's the only thing it's good for, is, I use it for bruises, and when I get a really bad bruise, I just pick this thing up, put it directly on, I fell on my hip. And I didn't break my hip, which I was very tough, but it was a really bad bruise of the bone. And I used the potato poultice, and it literally will take away the bruise. So what, and Jennifer's mentioned this before, the bruise is that blood underneath the skin. And what you want to do is clear that out so that you can facilitate the healing. So it's kind of clogging up your system. So the potato will actually draw it out. So I love this. It's so easy. It's just not.
Did you choose that over the comfort because you had that on hand instead of the comfort? Maybe
You
that's
know,
your winter boots.
You can use this, and yeah, no potato can get this right in the yeah, burns. I mean, that's what I remember my grandma. Well, they maybe same idea. Yes, like a focus on it. Yeah, a roll chop of it. Yeah. So doing the same thing. So that another thing we could try. So I think this is one of these. It's so easy. It's like, just try it. You know, rather than running it under cold water, just put up the potato. There you go, on the running. So, and it's quick, and it's, yeah. So I love this one. I use it a lot. I'm gonna. The only thing I haven't done, I have not. You know, when I look back and I reread the book, I think the thing that I didn't do well enough is I would get some immediate relief right away, and I wouldn't do another round. I would like to be busy. Oh, I did one, it got better, I could have done, like Jennifer, she does this, so she's, oh, I'm gonna do 2 hours later, I'm gonna do another one, and 2 hours later, I'm gonna do it. I just didn't do that. Yeah.
I mean, we're good enough, yeah.
Yeah, good enough. I went with the good enough healing. And I'm gonna move right to tomato. So Jennifer, I'm gonna move right to tomato. Do you want to say anything about potato?
No, I did when I talked about the guy's knee, so I think move right on to, yeah.
Okay. Have you ever heard of potato used for burns?
No, but not impossible, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna try potato for burns next time too. So this is another, wait.
Did you find you had lasting relief just for doing the one
Yeah.
application?
Well, see, here's the thing that I have found is that, if I do it right away, which I often don't remember, if one of the kids hurts themselves, I run and get the poultice. If I hurt myself, I think about it for a day. And then it kind of dawns on me, I should have put a poultice on that. So, it's much more effective if you do it immediately. There's just, It's just.
But it can also be done after the fact.
You can do it after the fact and you will get some relief. You know, I used a concrete poultice when I broke my foot. And I used it late and I think it helped it heal. I mean, I didn't have any problem healing and you know, I was 73 at the time. And it's always slower to heal when you're older. So, you know, earlier is good, but don't stop just because you didn't get it right away. So this one is tomato clay. Now, here is, again, an organic tomato that I peel and then I just cut up very small. Again, something you will have in your kitchen, right? So, and I always have this in the kitchen. Do they have what's the mountain rose here? Do they have? There's yeah. I just got this at Whole Foods. I've always used this kind, but it doesn't matter. So this is all you do is mix this up. And you just make a paste. And what I've used this for is when there is any kind of a boil. I've gotten boils no way. My daughter was having a lot of problems with boils and I used this and and what Jennifer has said about this, it draws out the like the seed of the boil, and then it allows the boil to actually heal. It doesn't necessarily make it pop, which I always thought was really interesting. It just kind of heals. So this one's a little different in that you don't put it on fabric. And you don't need this much material. If you have one of the little tomatoes, it's probably enough for whatever you're using. Depends on what, if you've got a boil on, say, on your leg, and you want to get it drawn out, you can use this tiny little bit of tomato and make this paste. This is white.
Same for like a mosquito bite or something.
I've never used it for mosquito bites. I've used it for like hornet bites. Anything that needs to draw. It's a really good drawing. Well, that it does that, and it draws out pus, but it also draws out poison from like an insect bite. So I don't know. I've never used it on mosquito bites. I've used it on like hornet bites, any of those kind of things. So this is kind of a gooey, sticky thing. You know, and this is way too much. And what I would do with this, could you hand me the paper towels?
You know, you mentioned you peel the tomato, and I'm wondering how to do it because I peel tomatoes all the time. The French way.
Well,
You boil or you drop it in 1, 2, 3 out right away. I cannot stand tomato skin. It's unpleasant. It is unpleasant.
well, it's also when you're trying to make a paste,
Yeah.
it's impossible. I have heard of that way, and that sounds like a really excellent way to
Yeah,
peel.
but you have to, and say, because like at first my husband was, you know, why? No.
Ah.
No.
I can try that because I've never done it.
So how do you peel you?
I do it the hard way and I take, you know, a good chunk of the tomato with. me.
Yeah.
You can't,
You like
yeah.
so thin.
it would be better because you would get more of the tomato.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the way I did it was not great. I would not recommend it your way. 1, 2, 3, out. I'm gonna try it. Right, yeah. So do you have this kind of mushy thing? And to tell you the truth, I make it a little bit thicker. It should be pretty. And then say I have something right here. All I do is back. I put it, yep. So I put it right on my skin. And I would do the same thing. I would wrap it up with plastic wrap. And I would leave it on for, my rule of thumb, because I'm not terribly knowledgeable and is between an hour and 2. I can usually tell that something is happening. When it stops happening, then I stop doing it. So, and the only one I do for a longer time is so that's, and again, in the book, they talk about other uses, and I'll just check in with Jennifer. We've got 2 more we're gonna zip to. So let's see her comments and then see if there's any questions about the tomato clay. So Jennifer, do you have a quick comment about the tomato clay?
Yes, one of the things that,
Tomato clay.
whenever you're working with, clay mixed in with, like in this case, a tomato, the tomato is kind of providing, I think, an acidy component, which also interacts a little bit with the clay. Then you could also leave it uncovered. So it starts out as a wet kind of poultice, which goes in and is absorbed, and then it'll act as a drying or drawing and tightening of the tissue. So you have to be careful with clay. So I used to use it on my horses, and because I wanted their tendons after a good workout to get the benefit of whatever medicine I was mixing with the clay, then I would I put the clay on directly on the skin or on their, furry, the legs. And then I would wrap a wet cloth around it in order to keep the clay moist. And then I would put plastic around that so that it did not dry in place. And then a vet wrap, which is a plastic thing. And then in the morning, those tissues would have absorbed some of the minerals and so forth, and the inflammation would be out of the tendons from the overwork. And then also everything was kind of tightened up. So clay, you have to remember, you can either let it air dry, in which it's going to, you'll have to wet it to take it off and clean it. So quick example of what I did last night when I had a whole bunch of chigger bites, and my other method of chigger bites was working for a while, but it woke me up at 4 in the morning, and I thought I need something stronger than what I've been using. So I went and got the clay, moistened it, and dabbed the clay on each one of my itchy chigger bites. And believe me, I had a lot of them all throughout my legs. And so then I just went back to bed, and I fell asleep until like 7:30 in the morning. Hard for me. I usually am up early. And I looked at my legs and I went, oh, wow. So I didn't cover those. I just put the clay on, went to bed, and it dried. And what happened is all that little itchy area just shrunk down. So it took out the itch.
Yeah, so in the book, it basically says carbuncles, anything that you're really trying to draw strongly. There are several other drawing poultices in the book. I love this one because it's easy. There's another one, but you have to cook it. This one, as you can see, is zip.
Good.
All right.
Move on to cabbage.
Yeah, moving on to cabbage. So cabbage is, I have absolutely no experience with cabbage.
But Jennifer says it works really well, so I'm gonna let her talk about it, but it's so easy, you don't need anything. It's really for the breast. For people who have breast problems, and all you do is, again, an organic cabbage. And you take this organic cabbage with you.
Whether it's one of the round cabbages or the Napa cabbages.
You know, I've never used a Napa. I don't know. This has always been the one that is in the book. That's all I can say. So all you have to do with this cabbage leaf, you don't even have to chop it up. You just take a rolling pin, and this is enough to kind of draw out. See how it starts to get wet? So, and then you take this and you put it inside your bra. If you have lumps in your breast, if you have mastitis, you have nursing problems, any of those things, you can feel it. It's wet, it's wet, and that's literally all you have to do to it. Is get a rolling pin and roll it out. That's it. So,
So just that small amount of rolling was enough
rolling is enough. It's just enough to get that. That's it. Just, and that would get your, so what you're always trying to do with all of these. And, you know, if you're out in the wilderness and you need to put something on something, you can just chew it and then put it on. You just want to get it broken up so that the body can access whatever is there. So that's a quick one.
And I think we're just gonna. No, I think we're okay. Okay, Jennifer, yes. Okay, we'll get to the eye. We're gonna do one more. Jennifer, do you want to talk about the breast, or we're gonna move right to the castor oil, and then we have the eye question?
No, you did great. And you also need to know that, you know, biopsies, those medical procedures are pretty common these days for women. So any of what you learned today can be applied to the pain that goes with a biopsy procedure on the breast. Whether you choose cabbage because it just feels safe and normal, do that, because you want to get the inflammation out of the breast as soon as possible. The breast does not have a good lymph clearing process, which is why we need to really sometimes pay attention to how to cleanse the breast of congestion. And that's why this has always been what women use for mastitis, so they could continue to safely nurse their babies and not maybe, you know, if it doesn't get as bad, if they can get on it soon enough, then it won't need the antibiotic treatment. So.
Okay, any questions on cabbage? And we'll move directly to our last. And this is another really, really, really easy one. So we did the most complicated one first. And second, this is a castor oil. And have any of you used castor oil? That's what it is. Yeah, it's castor oil is yet another really incredible both plant and product. It's very easy to get castor oil. You just buy it at the health food store. You know, you try to get stuff that's, of course, as I say again, I'm going to do this on this very small piece. What I have always used is this product. It's called wool flannel. It's organic. It's a wool that is not dyed. And I buy it like this. It's kind of expensive to dye that way. To buy that way, you can make your own with double cotton flannel if you want to. So this is one that Jennifer made. course, she's got horses on it because that's what she does. But on the back is the plastic. And on the front is 2 layers of cotton flannel. And what all you do with this is, and this is good for, I don't know if any of you, it's good for so many things. But what I've used it for, so you pour it on top. And it needs to absorb into the fabric. So it's very, yes, it is very viscous. And you wash or cloth when you make all, or instead of throwing the fabric away. So this one you can use several times. And then you need to throw it. So what she did, so all you do is, so I'm gonna totally saturate this. And you can see that the fabric gets kind of liquidy looking. And it's totally saturated. And then once that is, and it takes quite a bit of castor oil to really saturate it. Then say I have an achy wrist joint or an achy knee. I would take this and I would wrap it around this joint like this. And then again, I would wrap it in plastic wrap very well. This is terrible. Again, terrible to get out of stuff. It's so oily and so, right? You have to have something to lay it on.
It's like, oh, it's really good for 9 months at the other time. Maybe and then like the what I was working on. It was like a visible difference. One it was like super soft. It was and I was like, oh my God. So
it does do wonders for your skin.
yeah,
It really does.
I
The
just
skin gets fabulous. Yeah, it is really fabulous, but it's also just fabulous for the joints. It's just, but you can use it on, like, you can put it on your liver to help detoxify your liver. I mean, people use it for cancer treatments, they use it for all kinds of pretty severe things. I've used it for pretty minor joint aches and pains, but there's a lot of people who swear by castor oil packs for a whole variety of maladies. I love them. I did do a liver alarm about 3 weeks ago, and it really did make me feel better. So I think you can place it over any of your organs. It's very feeding.
But was that when the castor oil is sort of going in and it's not drying out? So
it's nourished.
that's why you can kind of use it over and over.
You can, so the rule is you can, so when you use it once, you put it in a plastic bag, and you put it in the freezer. This is how I do it. And then when you're ready to use it again, you pull it out of the freezer, you let it unthaw, and then you add more castor oil to it. So you can do that for, I mean, some people do it for a long time, just depends on the capacity for what you think, but, you can do it for, keep it for a couple of weeks, or I've kept mine for longer than that. That would be really useful.
I think I have the confidence.
Yes, yeah, but you can just put it in one of the little baggies, put it in the freezer, then you've got it when you need it. All you do is add this, and that's it. And castor oil is, again, like And you can make some of these other handy things. This is like a castor oil, thing, so we'll get to the eyes right now. But I found this purchased product to be useless. So I brought it along as go by. So, let's, now I have a question, because I don't castor oil is so sticky. Why is it that it cannot just be put on and then just wrap like your paper towel if you don't want that? To do that, what do you have to do with poultice? The others I understand, there's some juice and yes, it keeps it together, but castor oil does not run and drip. Well, the problem I would find, I think if you could find anything that would hold it and keep it next to your skin, I think you'd use it, as long as it wasn't adding any other toxic material. I wouldn't do a paper towel just because a paper towel would absorb it. So rather than hold it next to your skin, it would absorb it. So, but I don't, try it. See, so let's say you're wasting money, why not just put it as we do itself? No. So I'm just wondering why the whole is taking for that. I mean,
Again, opposed to massaging it into the.
yeah. I think you could massage it into the skin. The only problem I would find with massaging it into the skin, when I don't do it, is it doesn't go right into the skin. And you've got this it's messy. You've got this slimy stuff on top of your skin. It isn't like those really fine white. Right. Well, we wanna.
Yeah, no, it's, because I looked into that too, and I was like, well, why isn't this like in every skin cream or something, but it's because of, I think it's because of its viscosity. And the fact that, you want something to feel smooth and you don't want it to feel sticky.
Right.
And that will feel sticky on the skin for a long time. But I did do that, I would just put it on my foot and then sometimes wrap the bandage around it and then put the sock over it, like in the plastic bag, and put the sock over that, just to kind of keep it in place. And maybe it's just that sort of keeping it there and sort of like emanating thing that also helps to sort of, I don't know, that's like, just.
Yeah, no, I think that's helpful. Yeah. All right. So let's just go back to any final comments Jennifer might have, and then we'll do the eyes. I think we've got a little bit of time. So,
We have looks like we have about 10 minutes, so. if
So
any-
for
go
two,
ahead.
Jennifer, any comments on the castor oil? And then the question about the eyes.
Good, you might be. Okay, so I really appreciate that discussion, and I really appreciate, Bertie, how you set up this format. It is such a good way to teach and for people to experience what we're trying to convey. So I hope you all have appreciated this. The castor oil I have used on my neck, and I heard the discussion about the plastic, and yes, you don't have to use plastic. So when I had a car accident with severe whiplash, I just simply put a thin band, the way Bertie showed you that she put around her wrist, around my neck, and then a neckerchief, one of those bandana type things. And that's how I wore it all day long, because I wanted to heal the deeper penetrating injury that had happened in whiplash and the pain. And so I wore that for several weeks because it was ligaments and tendons are very slow to heal when they've been stretched to their limit. And when they're stretched completely to their limit, then they do influence the bone by, sometimes a fracture. Fortunately, I didn't have that. So this was constantly nourishing. And you can tell if you are wearing a castor oil poultice or how you're wearing it, and you start to perspire. To me, that's a sign that the body has switched to the elimination process. And in that case, I would throw that particular piece of castor oil cotton away and not reuse it. It is often used for a lot of the breast issues as well, like what I talked about for biopsies, part of fresh poultices and then switching to the castor oil, because it is such a powerful lymph plant. If you were to wear a castor oil poultice for several hours for 3 days in a row, you would find that your bowels would start to have the elimination, because it is a laxative. If you take it internally, it's very strong that way, as well as influences if there's a struggle at the birth time. But that shows you how much you can absorb the castor oil through your whole body's system, that it would influence the bowels that way. So that too is good to know. So I think we covered that pretty good. You have to work with a lot of what your own personal need might be with any of what you've been shown today, or you can experiment, like, I think castor oil is more of the Latin name for it is Palma de Christa, which would be the hand of Christ. And that always seems to sound to me like, wow, we can expect a very powerful healing from this plant, which is normally toxic if we would be taking it internally. So that would be one that I would experiment with if you're just trying to get used to what it feels like to have, an oil poultice on your body. It feels good on the skin, and it will influence the lymph and everything under it. So that would be one too, if you wanted to influence the liver, to wear it over the liver. And that would help the function of your liver. You don't have to go to an extreme, wearing it all night. I've done it when I've had spinal injuries, simply to keep the muscles from spasming. It will do that too, somehow. Okay.
Hey, Jennifer, let's address the eye issue. Do you want to say it again, Maria?
Yeah, I just started having feeling a few weeks ago, like I had something in my eyes, and I thought, okay, maybe the pollen. But then last week it started feeling like something was actually in my eye, and I was trying not to get it out. I got finally an eye wash, nothing came out. So finally I went to see the ophthalmologist yesterday, and she said, oh, it's left for whiteness. So, and they give you an eye ointment with a little bit of antibiotic, which I was not very thrilled about, but she said it's topical, it's very.
Yeah, I wasn't able to hear the whole part. Is there blood in the white of your eye? Is that what the?
It's apparently it comes from dry eyes, so it's inflammation under the eyelids. So
Oh, okay. All
constant
right. Yeah, they didn't call it something that starts with a B, like.
blepharitis.
They
Okay.
did, starting with a B.
Okay, yeah, that one, I've had that. My ophthalmologist told me to wash what it is the eyelashes. The follicles of the eyelashes have gotten bacteria in them, and then it creates that inflammation. So periodically, especially since we put creams and so forth on our face, or we perspire in the summer a little bit more, I just once a day wash my eyelashes with a little bit of soap and keeping your eyes closed, and then rinse it really well. So that takes care of the infection not returning, actually. And then, I don't do much more than that. It's more that it's an accumulation of our own skin oils in combination with sweat and so forth.
So you
So
could,
the dry eye aspect, when I've treated the eye, my concern, if anyone puts compresses on their eyes, and I've done that when I've had sore eyes, of different, eye-friendly plants, if you will. The eyelids are closed. I use a round circular cotton, like we use in cosmetics. It's thin. I usually lay down and, so that the pad will stay there, and I put it on my eyes with the towel underneath. And I time it, because my tendency, if I fall asleep, is I think if we go to the drawing stage, I don't definitely want to dislodge my retina or pull things to the eye as a way that the body's trying to eliminate. So definitely, I do not go beyond 5 minutes. And then I definitely will rest, and then maybe an hour later or 2 hours, or, wait till much later in the day, another compress 5 minutes. So that's just my own intuition preference for how I felt when I did do my first compresses on my eyes.
so
So
what would
that's
you
why you have to follow, again, your more inner voice.
So Jennifer, what was the plant that you used for the compress that you used for your eyes?
Well, there are different ones, Bertie. I think we worked with some for you, but it was, I mean, I've got fennel seed in my kitchen, so I will always, even if I'm using a compress externally on the closed eyelid, still strain it through another cloth, so there's no material that can possibly, no physical material from the plant interfering. And I will put a pinch of saline in it, because if some of it does get into my eye, which I don't mind, but this is again a closed eye that you're treating. So the saline is friendly and it's cleansing as well. So fennel seed is one of them. And I can't draw to mind right now other ones that I've used. Golden seal is a very important one, but that's a at-risk plant, and you'd have to be sure that the golden seal that you're purchasing is from a reputable dealer, and not wild harvested. So you can look up different plants for the eyes and decide kind of what your particular issue is. The golden seal would be antimicrobial.
Okay. All right. So, we are at the end of our time, folks. Everybody gets a book, and the reading material, each one of these poultices is written up in the book. So you can, and there's many more suggestions for other kinds of uses for many of them. Any final questions? I think we're done.
Give Bertie a big hand. Bertie, you did that's great.
Yeah. Right.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Really interesting.
you're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, we're gonna sign off, Jennifer.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Bertie. Thank you all.
Bye-bye.